So thank everybody for joining this next leg of our working group tour. Absolutely delighted to welcome today Christian Hauser, who is the lead for the PRIME working group on anti-corruption. He will begin our session telling us about what the working group does and how to get involved. And then Rasha Kassem of Aston University will be presenting her work based on anti-corruption and everything that you can benefit from the UK and Ireland perspective in what's available for collaboration around this very important theme. So I've decided not to go for reading out your profiles, Christian and Rasha, because I think that can just sound a bit formal and awkward. I decided just to ask you to begin by telling us a little about yourself and your background and your many achievements. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Karen. And thank you very much for inviting us to share today a little bit of the work of the Anti-Corruption Working Group of PRIME. And my name is Christian Hauser. I am a professor of international management at the University of Applied Science of the Grisons in Switzerland, which is just 1 hour to the east of Zurich, and a very well-known region due to the World Economic Forum in Davos, which is happening currently, right? This is in our region, right? So where my university is situated. And I'm a member of the working group on anti-corruption since almost 15 years now, since it was launched, because my university is also one of the early signatories. It was actually the first university in Switzerland to sign the PRIME principles in 2009. And since then, we have been engaged also in, for example, the Champions Group of PRIME, but also the chapters and things like that. So now, since a little bit less than 2 years, I'm pleased to be the chair of the working group. And therefore, I'm very happy that today I'm able to tell you a little bit more about our work. So I realize that not all of you are very familiar, maybe with PRIME, or not as in-depth, have in-depth knowledge. So therefore, but I have some slides a little bit broader, but then going to our working group immediately. So the work of PRIME is based on these 7 principles that have been recently updated, right? There were 6 principles in the beginning, but now we base our work on 7 principles. And yeah, I will not read them out now, right? I think most of you are familiar with them. But our work as working groups is very much related then to these different principles. So as a signatory, you have different options to engage in the work of PRIME, right? There are the PRIME chapters, like the one for UK and Ireland that is hosting us today, right? I already mentioned the PRIME champions. And then there are the working groups, right, that are focusing more on key thematic areas. And then there is the engagement options for students as well. So as I said, we are today focusing on the working groups, and PRIME has established over the years 9 working groups where it's about collaboration between scholars of different institutions, right, with a specific focus on a particular topic, issue of sustainability, sustainable development, responsible management, and anti-corruption, which is Principle 10 of the UN Global Compact, as you might know, and is also reflected in SDG 16, was actually one of the first working groups to be established. As I said, almost 15 years now ago, that we started our work. And I will now share a little bit of the work that we've done. Here you can see the heads of the chairs of the working groups, the different ones. So here I'm representing, as I said, the working group on anti-corruption. And I will dig down a little bit on what working groups are doing and how we are doing it, right? Because it's about, making contributions to different aspects, right? Like developing trainings, conducting webinars, issuing publications, organizing events. This is all what we are doing with regard to a specific topic, which is in our case anti-corruption, but the other working groups are also doing similar things and based related to their specific topic. So now, when we talk about the working group on anti-corruption, right? We have a mission, right? We say our mission is to develop best practices, encourage curriculum change, and promote research and dissemination of knowledge within with a practical focus in the areas of business ethics, transparency, good governance, and more, right? So this is what we are aiming for as a working group. And of course, we also would like to contextualize these topics, right? Because anti-corruption is a topic, what is corruption, right? What constitutes corruption is a long discussion, academic discussion as well. And there are different facets to this phenomenon, right, which is a global phenomenon. And of course, we have signatories from all around the world. And therefore, we would like to work on topics that are also localized, right, to certain regions, but also to sectors. And we would like to provide tools and solutions for educators on the one hand side, but also practitioners worldwide that are tailored to their specific needs, right, in the specific areas. So this is what we are aiming for. And to give you an example of what we did, right, as a working group, really early on, when we started our work, we developed what we call the anti-corruption toolkit. This was a very comprehensive guideline that we developed on how to implement anti-corruption in the curricula of business schools and other higher education institutions. So we developed this. We developed this toolkit that comprises 11 modules, where there is extensive material, right? Reading materials, case possibilities, right? And other sources that can be included into a curriculum of a business school or a university, more broadly speaking, where we have material tailored to different aspects, right, of ethical debates, around around the globe as well, right? Because as you can see here, the scholars, the colleagues that worked on this anti-corruption toolkit came really from around the globe, right? From Asian countries like India, right, to African countries like Kenya, Nigeria, but also Tanzania, European countries like Germany or Switzerland. Unfortunately, UK colleagues were not represented back then, right? But Hungary and Denmark, for example, as well. And then to the Americas, right, where we had the US represented, but also Brazil, right? So it was a quite diverse group of people working on this topic of developing this toolkit. And this was then launched also as a website, right, where you can access these issues, right? So, for example, teaching methods, and then you can access these tools where you can see, okay, I would like to learn more about how to use, for example, case studies to teach anti-corruption in my classroom, right? Or how to give students a case writing exercise in the field of anti-corruption so that they can work on it, right? So that was the one. And for example, here we gave then also a short description of what the simulation in this case, for example, looks like. What is the background of simulation as a teaching method, and how can it then be included into the classroom? And we worked on this or gave them examples as well, right? So this is an example of how the work of the working group looks like, right? Then another thing the working group is working on, right, is trying to encourage universities, business schools to implement so-called business integrity action centers, right? So prime business integrity action centers that are really engaging as well with business practice, with UN Global Compact local networks, for example, and others, to spread the word, to work concretely, right, in their respective countries on this topic of integrity, anti-corruption, right, and also working together then in this network of integrity action centers to foster anti-corruption and integrity in educational sector, but also reaching out to other sectors of business. So there is set out what these kind of action centers are doing, right? They act as platforms for exchanging, for example, best practices and experience with practitioners. They develop and launch joint research projects, right? They are then developing training materials, facilitating collective action or integrity pacts, all these kind of things, right? This is what these kind of PRME business integrity action centers are doing. And then something, sorry, that we do as a prime working group as well, right, is what we call the prime integrity talk series. We invite people from academia, but also practitioners, government representatives, representatives of international organizations, but also people from NGOs or activists, to talk about business integrity, anti-corruption from their perspective. So I brought you here some examples of some speakers of the last couple of years, right? So we had, for example, here Christina Ritter. She's the head of the Anti-Corruption and Good Governance section of the UN Global Compact. She was talking. We had then Richard Nephew, who was until recently the coordinator on global anti-corruption issues of the US government, of the Biden administration, right? But then we had also someone like Cecilia Müller from the Maritime network, right, talking about the experience of the maritime sector in fighting corruption. We had then colleagues like Stefan Schembera and Andreas Scherer from a more academic perspective, who shared their research insights of how to come from a compliance perspective more to a progress perspective, right? And then we had, for example, here Philip Ridley, an author and investigative journalist, who spoke about whistleblowing and the problems, right, in whistleblowing sector. So you can see that we try to engage with all sectors of society in our dialogue, outreach activities, right? This is, as I said, a 1 hour format. We have normally half an hour input and then half an hour of open discussion, dialogue, and it's always very, very vibrant discussions, right? So very interesting. So we would be very pleased if you could join one of our next sessions as well. We are planning 4 sessions also for this year. Then we are doing research as a working group, right? Our most recent publication is the one in the middle, called Organizational Corruption, Crime and COVID-19, which is a research endeavor where we conducted research on how the COVID-19 pandemic affected corruption, right? How corruption flourished during this pandemic. So we had colleagues from around the globe, case studies from Asian countries, European countries, but also from the Americas, right, where we saw cases of corruption that appeared during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we had colleagues who contributed of how can we strengthen now our anti-corruption efforts, that in a similar situation of a new pandemic or another type of crisis, that then corruption would flourish less than it did in this last crisis, right? So, and currently, for example, we are conducting research on the future role of the compliance and ethics officer in companies, right? Where we have also then we will also organize a conference on this topic later this year, where we would like to explore what the current challenges, right, starting from geopolitical challenges, but also regulatory challenges, technological changes, like the introduction of new digital technologies, AI, and these kind of things, how this affects the role of the ethics and compliance officer in organization, and then, of course, also how this affects the educational programs that are targeting at educating these future ethics and compliance officers in organizations, right? So what we as yeah, universities, business schools need to learn from that. So how does this line of work will potentially look like in the next 10 years, right? So that's a little bit what we are currently working on. So we have always such a research stream within our working group as well, and you are more than welcome to engage in these work streams as well if you feel that you are working on these topics or colleagues are working on these topics. Yeah, so we are inviting you to actively participate and contribute to this work, right? And also to propose research streams. We are also always looking for new topics that we can then explore as researchers. And then we are also invited as experts, right? Here, for example, this was 6 months ago, roughly, in late summer last year, right? There was in Vienna a consultation by UNODC and the Global Compact on how to make business integrity even more a reality, right? They called this a Think Lab on business integrity, and there were practitioners from companies, from international organizations, invited, right, to think about how we can strengthen business integrity. And as a working group of Prime, we've been also invited to participate in this dialogue. So these are some of our activities as a working group. And with that, I would like to thank you from my end for your interest in our work. And I will stop here to hand over the floor to my colleague Rasha, who is then sharing a little bit her experience as a member of the working group and also a person that is active at a UK university. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Christian. I will just turn on the camera as well. Yeah. Hi again, everyone. I'm Rasha Kassem, and I am a senior lecturer at Aston University in the UK. Some of you may know that it is located in Birmingham, not that far really from London. In addition to being an academic, I'm very active engaging with policymakers and practitioners. I'm a certified food examiner, which is similar to investigation, but at the moment I don't do investigations. I do more food consultancy. So I'm also a consultant in insider fraud at Cyphers, which is a non-profit organization in London. So today, I just wanted to share with you what I do at the teaching level, research level, and knowledge exchange. My main goal and mission really is to fight fraud and corruption through education, research, knowledge exchange, and collaboration. So speaking about anti-fraud and anti-corruption education, I'm going to take you through the activities that I do. I teach modules like audit and professional ethics, risk management and corporate governance. And through these modules, I embed topics that can be relevant to corruption and fraud, including the role of external auditors in countering fraud and corruption, and the impact and nature of fraud and corruption risk on both individuals as well as organizations, regardless of the sector. And then also how organizations and individuals can protect themselves from fraud by either preventing fraud and corruption or detecting fraud and corruption. It is very important for me as well to inspire students through education by making it more interesting. And this happens by realizing that no one approach fits all, really. Students do appreciate a variety of teaching materials and approaches. Based on that, I do use a variety of teaching materials, including case studies, real fraud and corruption cases to bring the modules to life, discussion topics, and students really love that, love to share their views and engage in the classroom, knowing that their views and perspectives matter in education as well. I share with them professional videos, and I regularly invite counter fraud and corruption guest speakers to share their experience and insights in fighting fraud and corruption. I also encourage students to consider careers in countering fraud and corruption. So far, I have provided my students with 20 mentorship opportunities to work with the Fraud Advisory Panel in the UK, and also the Cabinet Office Counter Fraud Profession, who are going to offer them free training and also mentorship so that they can consider fraud and corruption careers in the future. And if they are not interested in this area, they are still going to train them on exploring, for example, civil servants jobs in the UK. And I also regularly share fraud and corruption training materials, internship opportunities and job opportunities among students at Aston. I do have a lot of materials on countering fraud and corruption, and I'm more than happy to share my case studies, PowerPoint slides, videos, etc. So if you are interested in getting a copy of that to embed this in your modules, please contact me. My email is r.kassem@aston.ac.uk. Now let me take you through what I do in terms of fraud and corruption research, and also talk about opportunities for collaboration. I have a lot of published fraud and corruption research, really over 30 publications so far. Some of the current ones are on external auditors' role in countering corruption and external auditors' failure in detecting material fraud, why they fail and how can we address that. Also, I talked about external auditors and financial fraud risk assessment, and how they can possibly assess the motives for management fraud during the normal course of the audit. So if you're teaching audit and governance, these are the topics that can be relevant to these subjects, or even risk management and talking about fraud risk and its impact and the types of fraud, etc. I also published about the role of corporate governance in preventing fraud, external auditors and how they can detect asset misappropriation, which refers here to asset theft and abuse within the organization. I also published an insight of fraud and corruption in UK policing, and the same in hospitality sector, the football sector, in tourism, and how insight of fraud changed during the pandemic, and how fraud criminals exploited the opportunities, the vulnerabilities of individuals as well as organizations to increase fraud. At the moment, the current fraud or corruption research that I'm working on includes fraud and corruption in charities. I'm also looking at young adults' vulnerabilities to fraud and corruption, either as perpetrators or victims. And I'm looking at fraud investigation and policing, particularly the police attitude towards fraud and how can we possibly change their perception and attitude to enhance fraud, enhance fraud protection, fraud victims protection, and avoid fraud victimization. Regarding research impact, this really matters for me because I want the research and the findings to benefit as many people as possible. So it's not enough to publish academic publications. So I go about publishing professional articles as well, policy briefs to reach policymakers, blogs to reach students and also members of the public, and podcasts, which can be easier for others to understand and reflect on. So again, contact me if you like a copy of any of my research. And if you looked at my university profile, you will find the list of all the publications to date. Again, I'd be more than happy to share any of them with you if you felt like they are going to be relevant to your teaching or research. Regarding the knowledge exchange and collaboration at Aston, this is really a big thing, and in the UK in general, where academics are encouraged to go beyond the walls of academia and share their knowledge and collaborate with policymakers, practitioners, and members of the public. So I've been invited to speak and to act as a panelist and chair in fraud professional events. And I've been invited to speak as a member of the PRME Anti-Corruption Group at one of the events organized by the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime about ethics and compliance. At the moment, I'm a member of the ACFE Advisory Council. I've been on that board for like many years, since 2018. And I've also joined 2019 as a member of the Cross-Sector Advisory Council, which is located in the Cabinet Office in the UK. And our aim is to develop professional standards to help the public sector in the UK counter fraud. I'm also collaborating regularly with the Fraud Advisory Panel, who are responsible for educating charities and wider organizations as well, private sector, and working with auditors and policymakers, audit regulators as well, to ensure that fraud is being countered effectively in the UK. I'm also collaborating with the Charity Finance Group, the UK Parliament occasionally, not regularly. I have one of my policy briefs there on the impact of fraud on individuals in the UK, the psychological and sociological impact of fraud. And I've provided evidence to the UK Parliament on how the police are doing in terms of protecting fraud victims. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm a consultant in Insight of Fraud in Ciphers, advising them on the educational aspects related to corruption and fraud, and delivering the sessions. The sessions are delivered mainly to policymakers and counter-fraud professionals to raise awareness about fraud and also help them to counter fraud through their daily jobs. There are some current opportunities where you can engage with us and with myself as well. The first one, of course, as Christian said, is to join the PRME Anti-Corruption Group. So please contact Christian directly if you would like to join us. I'm also recently developed a fraud researcher group at Aston, and I'm leading that group. So if you are interested in joining us, please contact me. Feel free to email me or contact me through LinkedIn. If we're not connected already, please keep in touch. The more the merrier, really. Fraud is a dangerous crime, and I will explain a little bit more about this today in the slides. If you don't want to join the fraud researcher group, but still you're interested in doing any research on fraud and corruption, please also email me or contact me via LinkedIn. So now let's just talk about fraud and corruption, just an overview to know how serious the crime is. Starting with the definition of fraud, it is an intentional act of deception intended to secure an unfair or unlawful gain, which can be financial or non-financial. Fraud involves lies, deception, cheating, manipulation, abuse, theft, falsification, concealment of facts. So really, you might be anyway aware of what fraud means and do research in any of these areas under all these keywords, but they all mean the same thing, basically fraud. We have the Fraud Act in the UK, which was developed in 2006, which emphasizes the importance of dishonesty and intent in causing harms to others in defining fraud, and it covers a broad range of fraudulent activities. And they have categorized fraud into three main categories that allowed many crimes, including corruption, to go under fraud. First one is fraud by false representation, which means dishonestly making a false statement to gain or cause loss or expose others to risks. And the second category is fraud by failing to disclose information, which involves not disclosing legally required information to gain or cause loss to others. And fraud by abuse of position, which involves misusing a position of trust or personal gain or to cause loss to an individual or organization. As you know, corruption is the abuse of power or position for personal gain, often involving dishonest or unethical behavior. And it includes various examples such as bribery, conflicts of interest, nepotism, favoritism, extortion, and illegal gratuities as well. So how fraud and corruption really intersect. Corrupt practices often involve elements of fraud, such as abuse of position as defined by the Fraud Act in the UK, where corruption involves individuals abusing their authority, aligning with the fraud by abuse of position provision. And in cases of bribery, offering or receiving something of value to influence actions, which can be considered fraudulent if it involves deception. Many studies view corruption as well as a form of fraud, particularly insider fraud committed by employees, managers, or directors against their organizations. And one of the biggest organizations in the area, the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, which has a global reach, classifies corruption as a type of fraud. And you can read about it through the 2024 ACFE Global Occupational Fraud Report. Let's now talk about the impact of fraud, which is a vicious crime, really. It has a global impact, and it is a global issue, not just in the UK. However, unfortunately, in the UK, fraud constitutes more than 40% of the total crime in the country. And it harms individuals, organizations, economy, and constitutes a national security threat, as reported by RUSI, which is one of the non-profit organizations dedicated to fighting fraud in the UK. The total cost of fraud in the UK is often in the range of £190 billion to 200, which is massive, as you can see, and it can cost the global economy over $5 trillion US. However, the impact of fraud is really, it goes beyond financial losses. So now let's see how it impacts individuals and organizations. From an individual perspective, it goes beyond financial losses. It results in loss of confidence and trust, really hits fraud victims at the individual level. It hits the well-being and mental health, social isolation, insomnia, stress, and cause feelings of anger and betrayal. And in some cases, it leads to suicidal thoughts as well, which the police is trying to deal with. And some of you who lives in the UK knows about the contamination of food supply chain that happened in Tesco and the horse meat scandal. At the organizational level, fraud can cause reputational damage, result in bankruptcy, and we've seen cases like Patisserie Valerie in the UK collapsing and Karelian as well as a result of fraud. In Germany, we've seen Wirecard collapsing as a result of fraud, and many more. It can result in loss of customers, loss of time, and legal fines as well. Speaking about what are the types of fraud, because fraud can be committed by individuals or organizations, and the victims can also be individuals or organizations, we can classify it then as fraud against individuals or fraud against organizations, and you may have heard about these crimes separately. Speaking about fraud against individuals, that includes romance fraud, where criminals target individuals and use romance or they desire to date and have someone as a partner in their life to defraud them. Really vicious crime, because then the harm is not just financial but also psychological. Investment fraud, pension fraud, online shopping fraud, cyber fraud, and this is not an exhaustive list really. There are various crimes of fraud against individuals. So if you're interested in any of that, let me know, we can research this together. There's also fraud against organizations, whether this is committed by insiders, which we call insider fraud, and that usually includes financial fraud, asset misappropriation, and corruption. And external fraud, which is usually committed against the organization by externals, such as cyber fraud, customer fraud, supplier fraud. Again, these are just examples, but not the complete list of fraud types. Just some final thoughts that we need to collaborate to educate our students who are the future professionals to counter fraud and corruption in their professional careers and uphold integrity. And also we need to collaborate on fraud research that protects organizations, individuals, and society against fraud. So please do consider joining the PRIME Anti-Corruption Group, because together we can make a difference. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, keep in touch, join the fraud researcher group if you like, or contact me if you would like to collaborate on further research. So thank you very much for attending, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Christian and Rasha. A whistle-stop tour and packed with content. I'm going to pass straight over to the floor to invite you. I know we've got a number of subject experts in the room to ask any questions that you'd like at all, or to put them into the chat. You can raise your hand, put on your camera, whatever suits you best. And perhaps while we're waiting for those, I would just like to take the opportunity to ask, what are your views around I'm particularly interested in the G of ESG, the governance and the implications of the increasing regulation, the corporate sustainability reporting directive, and how professionals knowledgeable on sustainability build their knowledge to understand everything that you've just discussed in terms of corruption, bribery? I mean, there's such a lot to cover, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the way I see it, Karen, is all these concepts you've just mentioned are related. They are interrelated. They are not separate. So we're not really talking about separate things. So speaking about the governance, you're speaking about the role of the board of directors in monitoring the organization and ensuring leading with integrity, basically. And leading with integrity then would require them to think about sustainability, would require them to think about controls that would counter fraud and corruption. That would really urge them to think about employees, because when we talk about fraud and corruption, we're talking about human behavior as well. So ignoring the psychological aspects and why people commit fraud is very dangerous. So when they design controls for their organization and when they govern organization, they need to think about, okay, what might motivate individuals within my organization to commit fraud or to harm the environment, etc. And then from that perspective, they need to design controls that would then address these issues. Similarly, it's like they, really within the organization, they need to think about sustainability and ESG is not a ticking box exercise, that it is a responsibility that will save the environment, will save organizations. Organizations collapse as a result of fraud. The economy and the society will not really survive if we harm the environment and if we did not consider sustainability. Fraud and sustainability, interestingly, are related in a way, and we've seen this through the case of Volkswagen, for example, when they misrepresented the carbon emission, and this is not the purpose at all, of focusing on environmental impact. So again, I would say integrity needs to be in the heart of any business organization, organizations need to think about the link between all these concepts: sustainability, governance, fraud and corruption, and try to think about, okay, what can we possibly and realistically do in order to address these issues?
Absolutely permeates the entire organization, again, across all job functions.
Maybe just also adding a little bit to what Rasha said, right? What we saw until recently, right, that in organizations, these different topics, ESG, right, were more or less in separate silos, right, treated. And now with regulation more and more being enforced or implemented, right, also in the social sphere and in the environmental sphere, that compared to the anti-corruption sphere have been much less regulated in many aspects, right? So therefore, organizations have already a lot of knowledge built over the last 20, 25 years now on how to implement anti-corruption policies, measurements to secure compliance then there, right? And then, yeah, some people say, okay, then it's not about doing the right thing anymore. It's about compliance then, which I don't agree, right? Because it is basically, as Rasha said, right, it's about dealing with integrity, right? But there are a lot of instruments already out there that have been developed in the sphere of anti-corruption, for example, that now can be adopted to these new regulations in the sphere of social responsibility, human rights, and environmental responsibility. And I think there is a lot to learn. And within the organizations, these silos need to be broken up, but also in academia, right? We need to now collaborate more and more on these topics, right? Because we see the need in business practice also to address these topics now from a new perspective, right? Not on a voluntary basis, but more on a basis because now it's the law, right? Yeah.
David.
Hello, sorry. Hi, everybody. First of all, huge apologies. My laptop camera doesn't seem to want to join Zoom, and it was probably my ignorance. I'm usually used to Teams, so so I do exist. I am here, First of all, Christian, thank you for your presentation about the working group. Very interesting. I'm the prime coordinator for Munster Technological University, based both in Cork and in Kerry in Southern Ireland. I just actually followed the link that you put in there, and it told me it was unsafe. So I'm just saying I haven't been able to access that toolkit. But I would really like to, and maybe it's a question both for Rasha and for yourself, Christian, is we're developing like little network lunchtime sessions with students, and I'd like to look at the toolkit. I'm just wondering, this is something fairly informal we're wanting to pilot, and if we were to do something on fraud and corruption, is there any suggestions, anything you might have to hand, just to do as a little bit of an icebreaker to kind of get this discussion going? Some of it will be business school students, but others will be other students in other disciplines as well. Any handy hints? Have you got any slides or any kind of one-page workshop ideas? I mean, I can do a bit of a Google myself, but I'm just wondering if there's something that either of you might have used previously.
Yeah, I personally, thanks, Dave. I personally have a lot I could share with you. So yeah, happy to share that. If you can email me, I'll then pass some of the materials that I use with my students.
Are you at the business school?
I am, yes.
Oh, so you work with Marion then, will you?
Yeah, she's the dean.
She used to be my boss. I was the business director at Kent for a number of years. She came from Kent there. Okay. Right. Yes, I will drop you an email if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe we can connect separately. Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
That's fine.
So it's all about connections through this. Inma, hello.
Hello, everybody. I'm Inma, Richmond American University in London. Thank you so much. This is the piece of the jigsaw I was missing here, and Karen knows. So I teach compliance and regulation on financial markets, governance and sustainability, and basically and legal and ethical aspects of management. So it's really what you were talking about. I go through cases. I'm a lawyer as a background. I was in the city advising on governance for 20 years, now in academia, so I can bring some of that, and it would be great to connect with you. For me, that's a piece that was missing very heavily. It goes right onto ethics and to having my first class for the terms on governance sustainability, and I'm doubting whether to start with Volkswagen scandal or Theranos, two of my favorite ones. So absolutely, I want to connect and be on that working group, and I'll be looking at this toolkit. I think it's a fantastic thing that is there, and I've been wondering for a while, how do we fill that gap? So it's absolutely excited about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inma, and yeah, please reach out, as Rasha also said, right? Let's work together, right? As I also mentioned in my short introduction presentation, we are always looking for colleagues to join us. And with regard to the toolkit, right? I don't know why there is this that it says that it's not safe.
I seem to be able to open it on my end. I've not looked at it, but I've linked, gone to the links, and they open perfectly. But I don't know more.
So there are two. This is why I shared two links, right? One is to a PDF. And the other one is to the website, but the website, the original website, does not exist anymore. And this is also something I learned in the UN system over the years, right? Yeah, things start to disappear, unfortunately, sometimes, but then there is the web archive, and they stored it, right? So you can still access the web version of it as well, but not via the official website of the UN anymore, because there, unfortunately, it got lost. But it's in this archive function, right? But the information is also there in the PDF, right? But it's not as nicely animated and things like that as the the web version.
Well, I really look forward to including it, parts of it this term. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi, Christian, it's David again. I will try and find it. I'm just having a look again at the second link, and it just says to me, the message is, the connection for this site, webarchive.org, is not secure. So, okay.
Maybe you have a higher security, or your university has a higher security standard than mine,
we have an awful lot of firewalls and patches on our system, so it could be that. I might try and do it through my personal computer and see if I can get to it. But listen, folks, I have to go. So sorry about the visuals, but you know, it's no big deal not seeing me anyway. So look, hey, hope to see you again at some other point. All the best. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, David. Bye.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Can I just add that the Association of Certified Food Examiners website include a lot of free resources as well, cases and professional videos, and a lot of them that you could access for your education. Hopefully, I mean, what we're doing with the Prime is the most important thing, you know, because as I mentioned in the presentation, preparing our students who are going to be the future professionals and leaders is really the hope at the moment, because you have generations where currently exist who might not see the value of, for example, sustainability, or why they have to invest in ESG, etc., and see it as a ticking box exercise, while we can use our students' passion and energy then to change the world in the future by educating them about these issues and encouraging them to take on roles related to anti-corruption and fraud. And this is what we are trying to do at Aston and many other universities in the UK.
Absolutely. I think connecting the dots is what you've done so well in this working group, and that's really needed for us as educators to help us to be able to embed this more into the curriculum and to see those connections and to focus more on the ethics, transparency, governance as part of it. So I will certainly be trying to sign up to the working group to be able to follow all of the events that you're leading, because I'm super impressed. I'm amazed at how much you are doing and how your working group covers everything from pedagogy, I5, through to research, business engagement, working with UNGC. It's really impressive. So is the best way to follow the working group to go through the Prime pages for people to press that email link in there, Christian? Or
there again, I'm not 100% sure if this always is forwarded properly. So I think Rasha's suggestion to contact me directly seems to be even more appropriate, right? I know that there is this link at the Prime website, but I already learned that not everything there is forwarded. So I don't know why, but this happened already in the past. So yeah.
So direct emails, and hopefully through staying in touch now, and particularly when Inma makes contact with you, and Inma runs our regional network, the Southeastern London regional network, Rasha. So perhaps you might be able to concoct a session for that network group and for us
definitely
get to know each other better. But for now, thank you very much indeed for your time. It's been an absolutely wonderful hour spent with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Karen, and everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.